not really a new term to any one of you here. As you know that most companies across the world, they are thinking in terms of defining themselves not just as instruments for making money, but also to provide a meaningful presence in the community for its employees and surroundings. Maybe most of the projects that are undertaken as part of CSR or corporate social responsibility, they are not a direct road to business results, but they definitely reflect the values the institution stands for and how it will endure. CSR is yet another domain that has also been refusing to be the same as before, and it is precisely what has constituted the premises of our seminar or of our summit today. And therefore the title chosen today is Changing Landscape of Corporate Social Responsibility. CSR came into common use, as you know, in the late 1960s and 70s, so it has been aging for over the last 4 decades, and if you want to draw an allegory, it should be as mature as the finest of Scotch whiskies. The historical driver of CSR is, of course, philanthropy, but in step with the transitions, turmoil, and turnaround, CSR has grown into an increasingly important activity to business, both nationally and locally. As globalization accelerates and large corporations serve as global providers, the benefits of providing CSR programs are earning a distinctive edge to their operations in many more ways than one. In essence, it is as about building sustainable businesses which need healthy economies, markets, and communities. And to be so, it has a plethora of drivers as well. All these and much more need new lights to be thrown on. Retrospections have to be done with fierce intensity, since against the backdrop of resilient India, in the time of global recession, new thoughts, ideas, and actions require synergy. I believe that you will agree with the fact that in the above context, the seminar today cannot be more apt than the changing landscape of CSR in India. The panel of speakers include names who are considered amongst the finest minds in business, naturally, then flawlessly competent to present their deliberations, to make us more knowledgeable and charged up to get into the act of redefining our roles. We are indeed fortunate to have the presence of our chief guest for the session, Sri Manish Gupta, Honourable Minister in Charge, Development and Planning and Power, Government of West Bengal. May we welcome Sri Manish Gupta up here on stage. We have with us our chief patron, Mr. Ravindra Chamaria, Chairman and Managing Director of the Infinity Group and Vice Chairman of the Akshaya Patra Foundation, the largest non-NGO school meal program in the world. And may I also invite up here on stage the Chairman of the PRSI Kolkata chapter, Mr. Ravindra Mukherjee, and Mr. Shomujit Mahapatra, Secretary of the PRSI Kolkata chapter. May I request Srimati Ina Bose to hand over the memento to the Honourable Minister. Mr. Manish Gupta, Ina Bose. Ina is the Chief of Corporate Communications of the Infinity Group. And a memento to the Honourable Minister. He has taken time off his very busy schedule. As you know, these are changing times in the state of Bengal. And Mr. Manish Gupta is extremely busy from the morning. He's taken time off to be with us on this very important occasion. We shall now request Mr. Narendra Mukherjee, the Chairman of the Kolkata chapter of the PRSI, to hand over a memento to Mr. R.C. Chamaria. There goes the memento. Mr. Ravindra Chamaria being greeted. May I request Narendra Mukherjee, the chairman of the Kolkata chapter of the PRSI, for his welcome address.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is encouraging to see that increasingly business and industry circles in India are beginning to appreciate that attending to CSR activity strengthen their own position in the society apart from empowering the poor. In recent years, CSR activity conducted by major corporate firms and companies have improved in terms of their range and depth of welfare provided by them. Initially, most companies thought in terms of adopting a village or sponsoring an education or health-related scheme in a selected area. These days, far more comprehensive programs for the poor and the underprivileged are being undertaken, programs that empowers the community by enriching their lives. The importance of such noble initiative cannot be overemphasized in a vast, multilingual, multi-ethnic country like India with its colossal economic problems. Neither the center nor the state government can ever be expected to tackle this massive challenge posed by poverty, economic backwardness, or to address effectively the major deficiencies in health, public education, the key areas in the development of human resources. Private sector initiative, therefore, is a must, whether in form of NGOs effort or more direct sponsored endeavors. By way of example, mention can be made of the comprehensive program initiated by the Tata Group in helping and rehabilitating the kings of victims of 26/11 attack in Mumbai, recent welfare program initiated by various PSUs in developing township, and eye care program initiated by the Reliance groups comes to the mind. Such initiative effectively underscores the true nature of CSR activity. They go much beyond charity or donation. Again, it is heartening to see that the growing awareness of the vital importance of CSR is not restricted to corporate salary. Today, politicians and intellectuals are also taking a keener interest. Our Chief Minister, Ms. Mamata Banerjee, is known for her total commitment to the poor and the underprivileged in the society. The late Bhupen Hazarika, who delighted us with all the melody and message of his lilting music, gave us the song, Manush Manusher Jonne, Jivon Jivoner Jonne. Indeed, in this one line, Hazarika encapsulated the basic philosophy that animates all CSR work. Microsoft founder and global philanthropist Bill Gates has urged upon the G20 nations to introduce a tax to be collected from their citizens to finance development and provide economic assistance for poor nations in a recent interview. He claims some support for his proposal from certain sections already. He has also requested Brazil and China to do what for the third world. These augur well for the future of CSR activity in India and elsewhere. Increasing the range of poor welfare work on a sustained basis is the only way to reduce the growing gap between the super rich 1% and the poor 99% people in the world. In our own humble way, we at PRSI have always endeavored to stress the relevance of CSR work. We have organized seminars, workshops to highlight the issues. We have invited eminent speakers to express their valuable opinion and share their thoughts with us. Our program today will only be a continuation of the same exercise. We are eager to hear from our distinguished speaker once more, and with no more delay, I propose to leave the podium to them. With this word, I heartily welcome Honorable Minister, Mr. Manish Gupta, and other distinguished speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our chief guest for the evening, for the morning, Mr. Manish Gupta, Honorable Minister, Government of West Bengal in charge of Planning and Development at the Department of Power. As you all know, Mr. Manish Gupta has had a very long and checkered career. He has had public service. He has been in public service for nearly 40 years. He joined the West Bengal cadre of the IAS way back in 1964, and he retired from the West Bengal government as the Chief Secretary to the West Bengal government. So he has had a very very checkered career for 40 years, and post-retirement, for more than 10 years, he has served in the corporate world in various capacities, in very senior capacities like advisors to many, many industrial houses. And he was handpicked by the Honourable Chief Minister to contest the elections this year, and he came out victorious, and today he is the State's Minister for Planning and Development and Power. It is our pleasure to once again invite him amidst us, and I request him to inaugurate the program by lighting the ceremonial lamp, and also the dignitaries on the stage. Will you kindly walk down with the Honourable Minister? So the ceremonial lamp is being lit to mark the inauguration of the National Seminar on Corporate Social Responsibility of the Public Relations Society of India's Kolkata chapter by Sri Anish Gupta, Honourable Minister in the presence of Sri Ravindra, Chamaria, Chief Patron, the President of PRSI Kolkata chapter, Ravindra, and the Secretary, Mr. Ravindra.
Honorable Minister of Development and Planning and Power, Mr. Anish Gupta, my friends from PRSI on dais, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. I am really grateful to PRSI to give me an opportunity to talk to you about our activities and on the subject CSR. CSR basically, as we call it, corporate social responsibility. As the name says, it is not a charity. Most of us, we think that if we are doing something for the society, it is a charity. I personally feel that whatever we do for the society is your responsibility and not a charity. At Infinity, we work for 3 bottom lines, and each corporate should have those 3 bottom lines in mind. One is, of course, the profit, which is for your shareholders as well as for your employees. And the other is, the bottom line is the environment. You should also look at planet. So that another bottom line is environment. And the third bottom line is, of course, And the third bottom line, of course, is paying back to society. You know, when we talk about paying back to society, we are not obliging them. As I said, it is not a charity. All of us, and when I say all of us, means all of us, we are all beneficiaries of various helps, various donations of the society, of the government, of the mankind, from the beginning to the last. Even if we go to school, somebody has built that school for us. If we go to college, somebody has built college for us. We go to hospital, somebody has built that hospital for us. Just by paying a small fees or some small money to the hospital doesn't mean that somebody has not put efforts or money to help it. So if you really go back and see, it's at this level where we see hospital, school, colleges, entire ecosystem which has been provided to us by the society. Even the government, whatever government gives for the citizen, helps the citizen, creates the infrastructure, somebody has paid for it. That somebody can be, the taxpayer, that somebody can be government institutions which are earning money, but at the end of the day, we are all beneficiary of it. And since we are beneficiary of it from the day we are born, we have a responsibility to see to it that we pay our debts. And that's where, we feel, as I said, that the triple bottom line is very important: profit, environment, and of course, the paying back to society. We at Infinity, we try and do initiatives which are scalable, which are efficient. In paying back to society also, one has to be very careful that what initiative you are taking and what is the real impact. One of the initiatives which we took is Akshay Patra, where we feed around 1.3 million children all over the country in 8 states. And that program is most efficiently run, very much scalable, and value for money. As a businessman, when you want to invest something, you look for a greater return or a multiplier. I just tell you in Akshay Patra, how does it work? You give 1 rupee, the government matches 1 rupees, and because of the economy of scale and efficiency, you save 1 rupees. So your 1 rupee works for you as 3 rupees. So immediate multiplier as far as your investor is concerned. Because the food which we serve to the students, it costs us around 6 rupees, 6.5 rupees. Whereas that food actually, if somebody else does it in a smaller scale, it will cost around 10 rupees. And out of 6 rupees, half of the money comes from the central government and the state government, and half of the money we need to contribute. So basically, as I said, 1 rupees becomes 3 rupees. And it's not only at the level of money, it is also at the level of cost. Because when you are spending money, it should be very, very well thought of. So in Akshay Patra, our first cause is to feed the child. And when we feed the child is the most eligible candidate for feeding. Because if an adult is hungry, it is his or her fault because they are not working. But if the child is born poor, it is not his or her fault and they deserve to be fed. So first thing, you are feeding the most eligible candidate. You are not only feeding, because you are feeding, the child comes to school. And because he or she comes to school, they get education. And once they get education, there is another cause to it, that first of all, they will not be doing the menial job, they will not become a social problem, and once they get educated, they get gainfully employed. And it doesn't stop there. Once they get gainfully employed, the child is capable of taking out at least 4 or 5% of the family out of the poverty cycle. So it's a breaking of poverty cycle. So you start with feeding, where also you only invest 1/3 of the money, and then the implication is great. So basically it is a multiplier of, if you calculate 100-fold. So we believe that even the social initiative should be run efficiently, should be, considered properly, and should have a scalability. Anything you do, if you don't have a scalability, it remains a hobby. So at Infinity, as I said, that we work towards the profit for the shareholders, profit of the employees, and for the environment, we are committed that none of our building will be less than green rated. We have constructed the 7th building in the world at Salt Lake Sector 5, which is called Benchmark, which has got the platinum rated green certificate from US Green Certification Authority. And each and every building which we construct is all green. We try to at least achieve gold and then whatever we can, platinum and other things. We have started another initiative called Anand, which is also to give scholarship, about which, of course, there will be a detailed section. My colleague Kalyanka will give a presentation on that. But before that, let me show you a small film of Akshay Patra, which will tell you what this cause is and how we are doing it.
The modern age has brought about a dissolving of geographical boundaries that divide us as we enter into an era of global wars. The Indian workforce has entered the global world arena. However, development is usually complete only when it is in a holistic way. Giant strides are being made in the social development sector. What makes this program run with such efficiency? Typically, work in an Akshaya Patra kitchen begins while the rest of the city is in slum. Clockwork precision, use of technology in the kitchen, and dedication are few of the hallmarks of the successful temple. Silo, a storage unit usually used in the agricultural sector, has been put to good use in the Akshaya Patra kitchen. A D-stone separates the debris, husk, and even the broken pieces of rice. Measured amounts of rice are put in vessels for washing and then tipped into tubs. A level below, the rice is tipped into a huge cauldron. A cauldron like this can cook rice for 600 children at a time in just 15 minutes. Meanwhile, clean vegetables are cut and other fresh ingredients are prepared for the curry. Lentils, vegetables, seasoning and spices are tipped into similar ducts into another cauldron. Once cooked, it is again tipped into stainless steel ducts and collected in stainless steel containers in the level below. The back containers are loaded into customized vehicles, each of which can transport the hot steaming food for 5,000 children to various schools up to 45 miles from the kitchen.
You have seen this. Here we started with 1,500 children in the year 2000. We are at the moment at 1.3 million plus students every day in 9,000 schools. It has scalability, it has technology, it has most efficient kitchen, and at the end of the day, it is very, very cost efficient. And as I explained to you, that it has a great multiplier impact. Similarly, many of us, we believe that a lot of corporate social responsibility or any social cause, we can do ourselves. We can start from zero and do it. And nothing wrong in it. Of course, you can can do it. But again, it's a process. You need to learn, you need to execute, you need to have efficiencies. So we again believe that instead of doing everything yourself, go and collaborate with the NGOs, with the institutions like Ramakrishna Mission, Sankama Institution, where they are running a children's institution. Professor Dr. Sen Gupta is here, who is running a neuroscience institution, and many of my friends and colleagues from NGOs here. So we do believe that we must support these NGOs to scale, to get efficiency, and to do much better than what they are doing today. Last but not least is we should all be doing good work. We should be all interested in doing social work, but more than social work is the social consciousness. We should be conscious about it, that we need to do something, we need to help the society. And the moment this thought is there and we are conscious about it, of course the work will follow. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to me.
The Honourable Minister, Shri Manish Gupta, will now address the gathering.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think what we have heard so far, Vipula was particularly eloquent, and Mr. Chamaria and Mr. Narendra Mukherjee were able to lay down what I feel is some of the issues that we need to engage with where CSR is concerned. So, at the outset, I would thank Mr. Narendra Mukherjee for giving me this opportunity to come and interact with all of you here on this particularly engaging subject, sometimes a controversial subject of corporate social responsibility. Most days in the mornings, mostly by together, is the newspaper and the cup of tea. And what you see in the covers of the newspaper every morning is probably the leading news on the earthquake or rise in petrol prices or other international issues. But that is the hard drama, as I say. But deep down in the heart of India, there is a silent social and economic transformation that is taking place. It's not visible, but it's happening. People who pursue professions over generations, their children now are not willing to do the same kind of work. They are looking for betterment in society, a better job, better opportunities. When we talk about CSR, we are actually here talking really of the role of the private sector in development. I think CSR is a term which is all my personal views what I'm saying to you. CSR needs to be discarded as a terminology. We should call it the engagement of private sector with development. That is more appropriate in my view. Because when we talk about development, we need to trace as to what is happening in this country for the last 60 years. What are the measures, what are the yardsticks which are used to measure growth, which are used to measure economic growth and social benefits. So if you look at in 1951 to 1955 was the period of the first 5-year plan. And there they use GDP to measure the growth. So the target was 2.61% growth in GDP. But what was achieved was a phenomenal 3.61%. So the plaudits were offered to the economists who planned the layout of the plan. And then then they went into the second 5-year plan thinking what would be good for India. And there was a general clamor that we need to follow the Russian model of installing heavy industry. The accent was on industry. But we observed that at the end of the second 5-year plan, the rate of growth was not as expected, much below. So the analysis began as to what were the reasons for this phenomenal growth in the first 5-year plan, which was around about 11%. And here it was 3.5%. So the thinking then was among the economists and among leading industrial houses who were used to advise the government at that time, that we need to concentrate more on agriculture, because more than 80% of the people of this nation are engaged in agriculture. So the accent in the third 5-year plan was on agriculture, support services, fertilizers, chemicals, soil, irrigation, etc. But again, it was found that the rate of growth was just about above the level of 4%. So the point is that I'm trying to make here is that the country has to grow, economic development has to come, but at the same time, we need to see the strategies that are evolving and where the benefits are going. When we talk about economic benefit, we also have to talk about social benefit. And in the last 15-20 years, you would have observed that there's a sea change taking place in the role that the various sectors have to play on the economic scene. So there are certain measures of economic growth. Mostly we talk about gross domestic product, rate of growth. But there was a study about 2-3 years ago, a study was conducted jointly by Dr. Amartya Sen and Professor Stiglitz of the USA. And there, at the end of that joint study, they came to the conclusion that the measures of economic growth should not be entirely on GDP or rate of growth, but it should be assessed on the basis of human development index and associated factors, state of the mind, state of happiness of the people. You all know that perhaps that in Bhutan, they have their growth is assessed in terms of the national happiness index, as they call it. So basically, we need to see as to how the benefits are devolving on the population. Not the economic benefit, but the social benefit. For example, now when we come back to CSR, or as I say, the private sector's engagement with development, in the Planning Commission had conducted a study. Even recently, Mr. Moira of the Planning Commission has been urging certain changes. The Prime Minister's Advisory Council on Economic Development, Mr. Dr. Rangananjan is there. He has said that he has engaged with industry leaders and said that there has to be some change, it's time for change. In the last 15-20 years, industry, private sector has played a very big role and is continuing to big role in India's economic development. But when we talk about economic development or planning, what is it really, what can it be defined as? I think in the early 60s, 70s, our teachers and professors were in a dilemma. They wanted to find a good definition of what is planning and what is economic growth. And at that time, they said it was a set of measures to be taken by the government to achieve preset goals, economic goals, in the shortest possible time. But today I think that definition has changed because all sectors, the private sector included, is involved deeply in India's economic growth, and in that point of view, I think there needs to be a change in our approach and thinking. As far as corporate social responsibility or private sector's engagement economic growth. There are various experiences in various countries. It's still an evolving idea. For example, in China, they are wanting the public sector, they call it state-operated enterprises, to take the lead, to involve themselves directly in economic growth, not driven by philanthropy, but driven by an engagement and involvement, like in large infrastructure projects, like in education and health. Sometimes even like in Germany, they are advocating the idea that X or Y sector needs to be taken over by the private sector. So they are gone for PPP. This PPP that we keep talking about these days is a success story of the bridging of the gap between public sector, the government, the social sector, and other related stakeholders. So PPP is another area which CSR can engage with, but it should be a wholesome engagement. In Denmark, they describe corporate social responsibility as based on commercial lines. They have not evolved any law or rules or guidelines. But I think in India today, apart from this CSR as we talk about it, I think there is a need to form a group of all stakeholders to make it, to an extent, not philanthropy, but some sort of compulsions should be imposed so that private sector or industry can engage with the social sector. In the social sector, as we all know, I think somebody mentioned about NGOs. Yes, those NGOs, NGOs is not a good name, because sometimes the connotations are not very satisfying. But I think we can call them organizations in the social sector. For example, in some countries, this social responsibility comes from the top and goes down. But some from down and goes up, in the sense that there could be localized involvement of industry with local governments and local social organizations to solve local problems. So there a beginning has to be made, but at the same time, compulsions have to be included, maybe not by law, but by mutually acceptable guidelines, and certain benchmarks should be fixed so that the image of all the sectors, the image of industry, the image of the social sector, the image of the government, that they be more competitive and they can grow more rapidly in the interest of the people of the nation. So I hope that today's deliberations will evolve around this basic idea of how industry can engage itself with development, whether it be from the top or the bottom. It has to make a beginning. The government has to play a role of facilitator, of helping to bridge the gap between society and industry, and certain yardsticks should be mutually agreed to so that the quantum of industry's contribution in the social sector can be better. Thank you very much.
Minister, for his kind words. I shall now request Mr. Shobhajit Mahapatra, the Secretary of the Kolkata chapter of the PRSI, to propose the floor of the bill of thanks to mark the end of the inaugural session, after which we shall start the academic discussions.
I propose for the vote of thanks, and before that I must acknowledge that Ina Bose, who primarily steered this summit, right now she's on the floor, the backside, and we are really thankful to her. And we are really thankful to our Honorable Minister. In spite of his busy schedule, he could come here and address this August gathering. And with this, to Mr. Ravindra Chamaria, who is the CMD of Infinity. For the last 1 year, we have been approaching him for different causes, and always he lends his hand. Thank you, Mr. Ravindra Chamaria. And we are really thankful to State Bank of India. They are with us. We are thankful to PLS, Vannamthodi, Red FM, Infocom, Karuprit, and all the media friends for their support. We could take this inaugural session in a nice manner. And we are really thankful, acknowledging the presence of our National Body Vice President, Mr. Manoj Kumar Roy here. We are thankful to Biplav Ganguly for accepting our comparing job. This is such a short notice. And I thank everybody, all the audience here, and everybody directly and indirectly helped us to make our summit a memorable one. I thank you everybody. Thank you.